Hello, welcome to Twinings. I am Stephen Twining and I'd like you to come with me so I can introduce you to my world of tea. So here at Andover is the place where we develop the new blends, but more importantly where we manage the quality for all the Twinings teas around the world. Historically, we were set up with this great philosophy by Thomas Twining, the founder in 1706, who wanted his reputation to be for the fine quality teas he could buy and blend and then wholesale on, which is still very much the way we do business now. Because he started wholesaling his teas to other people, his reputation grew for the fine quality blending ability he had, and that has been handed down over the years through the generations. So at the heart of our business now are what I would call master blenders. These are people who've trained for at least 5 years, and then having done their training in all the world's teas, have specialised in one country. So develop a huge depth of knowledge about the specific teas. They are not only in charge of buying those teas for the blends that they're going to make, they are in charge of the quality of the blends they make, and they quality control them down the line. So it's a quality philosophy all the way from beginning to end. And Twinings don't own any tea gardens, which means our tea buyers are not restricted to buy tea from the plantations that we might own. We don't own tea gardens, so they're free agents to buy tea from anywhere that the quality is right. And that's how we maintain the quality of our 300-odd blends. Tea, I think, is like wine. And the quality of the wine is very much dependent on the growing conditions. As the wine people will say, the terroir. And we humble tea people talk about the soil, the altitude, and the prevailing weather conditions. And all those three factors alter what is fundamentally one species of plant, change its flavour dramatically. Because tea is affected by these three things, obviously the soil and the altitude are not going to change, but the weather is constantly changing. And therefore, one tea garden will change its taste profile almost on a daily basis. And therefore, we haven't got a set recipe. Our tea buyers have to select different teas from different estates, but they're very careful about which estates they're selecting teas from. But most important of all is that the taste can be recreated. So different ingredients are used to recreate exactly the same taste for your cup of tea every time. Because the difference between wine drinkers and tea drinkers is that wine drinkers accept that 2004 might have been a great vintage, 2005 was disappointing, but tea drinkers always want the same continuity in their cup of tea, and that is what our expert master blenders achieve day in and day out. All tea comes from Camellia sinensis, which is the tea bush. If you take the leaves and put them through a withering process and then break the leaf open during the rolling process, which is also when you change the size of the leaf down to whether you want a very small leaf for a tea bag or a larger leaf for a loose leaf tea, you allow the oxygen from the air to get into the inside of the tea leaf, and it reacts rather like an apple does. If you cut an apple in half, leave it in the air, it'll go brown. It's an oxidization process. During that time, the leaf obviously changes in colour, but it also forms a stronger mouthfeel for the tea and the flavour of the tea. So that would be to make a black tea. For green teas, they're put through a process where they cannot oxidise. So the leaf literally stays green, so when you make a cup of green tea, it's a very pale liquid in the cup, very gentle and delicate, lighter in flavour because it hasn't been through this oxidisation process. Oolong is, I would call it the rosé, if the wine analogy was true. It's been through a little bit of both processes. It's allowed to semi-oxidize around the outside of the leaf, whereas the inside of the leaf stays green. So it's a combination of a green tea and a black tea, and is very delicate. And finally, there's white tea, which is the most delicate part of the plant. Normally, when you pick tea, you pick the top two leaves and the newly forming leaf off the top of the bush. For white tea, you're picking just the newly formed leaf or the first leaf down as well, and this is then sun-dried and produces a very, very delicate, soft drink. At Twinings, our reputation is for quality, and therefore maintaining that reputation, which has been built up over many years, is absolutely at the heart of what we do. If we were creating a new blend, which we do all the time because tastes change, the tea tasters would work with our marketing teams and come up with maybe it's a tea flavoured with a fruit, or new teas are being grown around the world, get some tea samples in, taste it and see if it matches the expectation. Having established, if you like, a benchmark, a standard of which we want the product to be, then it is obviously their job to write up that recipe and to break it down into its standard components, which can then be replaced. The replacements change from week to week. But if you like, you've got a recipe that you have to recreate the ingredients for, and then you can bake the cake, and each time it will come out. So the total process between when we source a tea, when we get a tea in from an agent or directly from a tea plantation, that tea will be tasted between 6 and 7 times during the buying, blending and quality control processes, and that is how we constantly maintain it. One of the tricks we use is that if you want, if you like, that constant line of quality, it's a horizontal line. It never goes up, it never goes down, because our customers tell us they like it just the way it is. By measuring it against 2 fixed points, in other words, the 2 previous teas that we made, you'll get a much greater judgment by tasting it than just against 1. If you put 1 point on a piece of paper and another point, you'll always get a straight line. But if you've got a 3rd point and you get a straight line, you know you're going in the same direction. So we always taste back against at least 2 teas. The tea, having been unloaded, is stacked in its pallet format, because it might be that there's 1 or 2 pallets that have to go together to make the blend of tea. So everything in this warehouse will be stacked, ready to go into the blending chamber together, or if it's only a single pallet for a small amount of tea, that will be separated. Everything's carefully labelled, everything has its individual code number, which will follow it around until it becomes a finished product. And from here, the sacks are loaded onto a conveyor belt, which automatically open the tea and transport it to the right blending chamber. The tea, having been blended upstairs, is then dropped down a pipe to the tea bag machine. Now, the machine we're looking at here makes heat seal tea bags, which means the tea is dropped onto the lower piece of tea bag paper. The second is put over the top of it, and they're pressed together with heat, and that seals the tea bags. These machines obviously can run at very high speeds, and therefore we're producing about 2,000 tea bags per minute. The machines that make the string and tag tea bags have to be much more intricate, because they're stitching in a string both to the tea bag, and that is also attached to the tag, so they run a lot slower, and they're producing tea bags at around 300 bags per minute, but it is a fantastic machine to watch. If we measure it in tea bags, we produce around 7 billion tea bags a year from the 4 factories, 2 of which are here in the UK. And we sell tea in 115 countries around the world to anybody who appreciates a fine cup of tea, which is what Twinings have always promised. And hopefully their parents and grandparents drank Twinings, as will their grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And so Twinings will be around for another 300 years, supplying people with a cup of tea so that they can enjoy it the way that they like it.